where you end up doing this. I think you end up pushing, the push force back tends to, your foot has to settle before you can absorb any forward force. Personal opinion, it's just because there's a bias here. So, with that said. So, I'm going to use David here as my downhill dummy. So, how I teach a lunge. Unless someone else wants to be my dummy. David is my dummy by default. Okay, so the way, oh, sorry, sit down for a second, I missed something. We got into the tangent here. Talk about legs, we talk about arms. So, the arm is going to extend in almost all cases, even when it's in second or in first. And when the arm extends, especially from the point out, it should be using the triceps and not the shoulder and the wrist. It's really easy for new fencers, especially for Asian martial arts backgrounds, to throw any sort of extension like a jab or a hook, anything like this, where they're basically punching out. And when they punch, they lock their wrist and they just lock their shoulder. Because if you don't do this and you're punching, and you have a loose wrist when you punch, you break your wrist. So they've all been trained to lock that hand as it comes out. And this causes lots of problems for lunges. First, it's a little bit shorter, because I'm a little bit back. It's also, I can't disengage. So if I'm going to extend and feint, I have to punch, let go, and do this thing. So you see a lot of them, that people who do this habitually, you see this really, it's an SCAism, but it happens all the time. People throw this arm out, and they disengage like this. Like this humongous disengaged thing, like the wrist, all over, because they basically shut it out, they let go, and they throw it back in line again. And this is almost always due to this punching motion. You'll see also guys who like to do sky hook actions, where they're jabbing down, they hit really hard, and their arm just locks in and they go here. But they can't, once they've made their attack, they're spent. They've gone over, they're spent, they can't move their arm, and now once you parry, you can hit people. This is generally a bad thing to be doing. So, a couple funny notes. I was talking to a kendoka at the UC Davis Kendo Club. There's a 5-dot who trained in Japan. And they were doing suburi. And there was a lot of kendo guys who do suburi in the US. They do this. Always straight down, right? And he's like, no, suburi is this. It's forward and then down. So the arms go cast out. And it's the same motion. I'm using this part of the arm so they can get the maximum reach and then on the side. Or if you're doing Maya, and Maya wants you to cut the long point, this is that same position. So kind of interesting things. How much old core you do this is weird. It's a whole different discussion. So we want to see this extension done this way. My favorite piece of this is telling people to reach out. So if I have a new fence who's going to do this, I ask him to it's just reach out. I'll teach this with the arm open, the palm open and flat, and not like this, but like completely open and flat. And you see a lot of sport fencing videos where they're like this. Same kind of thing. Reach. If you work with me today and I yell at you to reach, this is why. So reach out, just reach out, nice and smooth. Okay. Now, to teach recovery. So to teach the leg power, this is a great floor fist because it's super sticky. I'm going to have you take your feet, I want you to push with your feet against the floor. And the floor won't move, you're just pushing outwards, and it's like storing energy. And when I say go, lift up your front foot. Go. Push, go. And this will generally get you to move that power. The power will come out because you've stored a bunch of energy. As soon as this foot comes up, you know where else to go, right? And if people have an idea of what they want, like, usually you'll see this the first time. Ah! Oh God! Almost always have this way too short. They're like, oh, that's not a power up, stop. Right? It's okay, no, just keep going, and you'll be okay. And then you'll get someone who looks like this, usually. Or the toe lift, because they're like, oh, like this. Oh God, I'm going way too fast, I gotta stop. So I'm braking, stop! And it totally happens. So this is the really common. Also for other martial arts people, it's really common because they're used to standing like this. And so their stopping motion is this. So then you talk about, then you have the kiki motion. And this is the one that hurts, because I will have David stand there kicking the shin. Kicking the shin, come on, kicking the shin, kicking the shin. There we go. And now, kicking the shin, left. And that happens.
David's going to do physical therapy right
Lift your toe, lift your toe, lift your toe. But, yeah. And I used to, at one point I would wear a FA coach's guard with padding here, then I stop, and then it kind of hurt for a while. Because there are guys, especially who don't want to do this, who I'm like, no, kick me, come on, kick me in the shin. Because they'll do this thing where they lift up their heel, and they kind of kick it out, all this stuff that happened, kick me in the freaking shin. And you have to get some force before they do it right, and that when they get it right, it really hurts. Because I don't do Muay Thai. I don't have, scar tissue all over the shins. So when you've got this, you've got to get the arm, reach out, push your feet, go. That's okay, I'll let you fall. Push, stand, push. Good. Right? So you want to make a distinction between the falling lunge, fall, where the lunge is powered by gravity. You're just kind of reaching out and walking down these sinks. That's not what we want. We want to be pushing. So it's going to go and push. You get something kind of nice. But we have this problem where, as with many classical dances, this is what's happening. When the arm is locking out, there's this kind of rigid stopping motion as the hand kind of vibrates at the end of its range, and then the body falls. And this is also bad because you get hit. You get, here, hit me, I'm attacking now. Oh, well, I'm lunging, and you're dead.
So,
Yeah,
like
this thing happens a lot. So we do this thing. So I'm going to have him grab my hand in this loose grip. I stole this from Pop, by the way. And it's I'm going to pull. No.
oh, okay.
I'm going to pull, and then his body goes. When you feel like your body's going to go, you're going to lunge. Relax. No, you're punching. There we go. Right, and you get this thing where the order is taught. His arm goes out, his body leans slightly, which is what we want, and the legs fall, because it has to happen. If he doesn't do one order,
I'll fall over.
You fall over, like it doesn't
Not
work.
gonna work well.
Or I can feel this thing in the hand, and like he's pushing ahead of me. I should feel like I'm pulling the whole thing out. And at a slow speed, it's about right. The legs are usually not powered properly in this case, but you get the right sequence of actions, and the arm is moving well. So you have the right timing. And then you say, okay, now I've taken the timing out, let's see if you can do it faster. And you put back the feet. But that gets us to usually a pretty decent lunge within the first couple days. Right? It's not perfect, there's always issues, but usually you get a reasonable amount of the right power and the right timing that way. And that's kind of how I teach the lunge the first time. And now we get to talk about the fun part, which is all the things that go wrong with the lunge. I can make fun of David now. So, we have like 3 classes of issues, really. We have issues with the arm, issues with the legs, and issues with the body and the coordination of the whole thing. And I kind of think about this in those ways. The arm is almost always punching. So, just a straight punch. Right? And the shoulder goes up. You can see this rising. And if you give it lessons and you watch people's shoulders, their shoulders are up like this, they're almost always punching. And I have a really hard time doing it. I'm sure David does as well, because it just doesn't happen. You see these guys who hunch, or they're like, ugh. That's almost always this thing. And there's a bunch of, I have a few things to do with this. So first, the easy one is tell them to reach out. That's stage 1. Reach. Reach, don't punch. Reach, don't punch. And I've given an epi lesson with a guy, and the entire lesson was yelling at him, reach! Reach! Over and over and over again, to reinforce this thing. So if that is having trouble, whose gloves are these? David?
I don't know.
I'm going to use your gloves for
I
a
got
second.
one over here. Okay.
All right, these guys are David. I'll have him grab something. Because you can't grab stuff if you're punching. Because your wrist is locked. You can't really do it. Your hand is locked. So now he has to do something where his hand moves, and he has to use the right mechanics. It's pretty hard to do this when you're punching. There's that one. For the kids, I have my favorite activity, and I'm going to steal Ryan back there because he's a big guy. I would use you, but you'll just crush me, so this won't work. So this is if you've done other martial arts, this shows up in Aikido and a lot of other things. It's the Aikido calls it unbreakable arm. It's part of Ki Aikido, which is one of the crazy Aikidos, but it's kind of fun. And I do it this way. So I'm going to punch your shoulder like this. And I want you to put your hands on my elbow and bend straight down. Just push down my shoulder until it bends. And you're bent, right? And now I'm going to reach and do the same thing. Right? Then the force level is considerably higher, and people will usually tell, oh, it takes way more force to bend that arm if I do it this way. And you can make them it'll help them figure out what it means to have this tense, as opposed to this. Because people often say, reach, what do you mean? And when they do it, they have no idea the mechanics of what that should feel like. And so people will just try stuff and it won't work. And this is a way they can test on their own, is that working right? Because there's a pretty easy feedback mechanism. There's plenty of people who have learned to catch all sorts of different ways. I was making you do all these drills, so you kind of get.
Yeah, like you sent a box to my house.
I sent a box. These are actually for. I'm gonna make you work on Monday. We're not doing this talking thing again. But this is the other one. I love this game, and this is a really easy one to do. This kind of thing. It's just the bounce and catch game, and I'm catching it not like a baseball and not like underhand. I'm gonna catch it by snatching, so my hand stays neutral as I catch it. And this is another way to kind of train this hand. So your hand has to go out, do something as an extent that you can do it with the extension, with the advance, the lunge, lunge, with the advance lunge. And if you really want to do a flesh, which we aren't going to do here because we're going to do the fleshes. We don't do this very good. No,
we do flashes in rugby.
we do fishing.
Yeah.
But you can do this all the footwork, and it will work on the hand and on timing to get the hand in the right position while you're actually doing an attack. Because if I just tell you to do this reaching thing, it's so artificial, people don't actually do it when they fence, and then it's hard for them to transition to doing lessons that way. This is the drill you can do. And actually, I had a fencer who trained in Spain. He's like, my master, 6 months of that game, man. Don't make me do it again. Like my first 6 months, just freaking catching balls all day. And not exclusive this, but like that was a bunch of what he did. It's like, yeah, I just did a lot of this. And it was this exact same thing, this bounce and catch. Until he was always smooth and the arm went out and stuff like that. So that's the stuff for the arm. In lessons, when people are tensing their shoulder, you can often tell when they're missing. The point is just like sliding across the face and not sinking in. It's almost always because their arm is too tense and they don't have sufficient flexibility in their hand. And I just had to yell at people and say reach. Start reaching out, reach, don't punch, and you'll see a lot of stuff. Even when you're doing like downward thrusts, it's the same motion of tensing here and kind of got this thing. If you did other Asian martial arts, you do diving rolls, and you dive like this. It's that motion. So you can't, if your arm is tense, you end up punching the ground, and that hurts. If your arm is loose, your elbow collapses and you hit your head, which sucks. So you have to keep this smooth motion, and that same thing is the same way you deliver these downward thrusts. You're getting that same kind of tension. So your hand is still loose, even though your shoulder is more engaged, because there's almost no shoulder engagement this way, but this way there's more. So any thoughts? This is kind of a fun thing to try.
So we do a slightly different variant with the ball, where you're holding onto the ball and throwing it up a little bit, so that way you're more prone to shooting out rather than trying to intercept it at a different range.
Yeah, so I've done that game. I also done this game.
That works really well with gloves.
Beanbags and gloves. I like the bouncing game because it works. You can get a timing element to it.
Okay.
And as you do footwork, you can do all the footwork with it. And when you do this, the footwork is basically immaterial. You don't have to deal with distance. So the great kind of the fun thing with this, and you saw me screw up, was you have to bounce the ball at the distance you can actually achievably do a lunge or an advance or a flesh or whatever. And if you don't do it right, you fail miserably. And then the ball goes everywhere, and many fencers don't like this because the balls go everywhere. If you've got the newbies over there and the experienced fencers fencing, the balls start migrating into the fencing. And that's a bad play, right?
So, could you do this as a pair?
Yes, there's a bunch of pair drills that look like this, where you're doing stuff like this. I lead, someone leads and follows, and then bounce and catch. Right, and so on and so forth, where you can do these things. They show up a lot. It's also, these are stolen from a lot of Russian coaches who, I think it's Russian coaches, who did this, who've done these games. You see this kind of stuff.
Is there one where you can stand behind somebody?
That's
awesome.
Different game. That's
Okay.
a whole different game, a different purpose.
Yeah. Still hate that game.
Yeah, that game is nuts. I'm bad at that game. So this is all stuff for this arm. It's also worth pointing out that our salute is a way to help the arm, because you have to, if you do this right, your elbow and your point stay in one line the entire time. So all the actions are training the elbow to move first, the elbow to bend and the wrist to stay straight. So when we do our salute, that is actually a training exercise for the rest of this stuff. Okay, so arms, shoulders, this is most of what I care about. Legs. Okay, so many falls to be found with the leg. The simplest, the most commonly, one of the common faults is landing with the toe. So he lunges, he lands with the toe and twists. So this one.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh God, I'm not on a lunge, this is bad. Usually this is coming from, he lifts up his heel, the lunge comes, the heel comes up, and then the toe lunges and the toe lands first.
Oh,
Which is not, the order is incorrect.
Oh,
And you'll see plenty of people, even who lunge mostly right, who have this tell on their lunge, where they're ready, the heel comes up and they lunge. The heel actually comes physically up before their lunge happens. And I have a student like this. This is Sage. Does this. And I have a favorite game, which I don't know that we can do in here, because I don't want to scratch this floor. We'll try it.
quarters?
Yeah. Actually, I have diamonds.
Oh, I love this game.
So, if you're a sport fencer, you've seen this game. Does anyone know what I'm going to do next?
Yes.
Okay. So, you put the dime. Who does not know this game? Okay. You put the dime on the floor. He's going to put his heel right on top of it.
Oh, I can put it here?
The heel, yeah. And when I say go, he's going to lunge, and he's going to make that thing move. Ready? Go. No. Heel went up. Ready? Go. No.
This is weird on the floor.
Go. Nope.
I think it's the floor.
It's the floor. Let me see. This is like
Okay. Sorry.
this is a sticky floor. I do this on concrete usually.
I put it under.
Oh, just rub it in now. Accept it.
Oh, wait a minute.
Dave's gonna be doing this all night long.
Yeah, really, you're just flattering the
You told him to go. He was playing heel of it. See?
When I'm teaching this, you lift the toe up.
Yeah, lift the toe first. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
So, with a note, this drill overdone leads to the sport fencer lunge, which looks like this. Where the hand foot goes way high, which is not something we want to see. So it's a tool I use when there's a problem and not a game we play all the time, because people will then get the competition, how far can I launch the coin? And their lunges start looking like, whoa! I got really far! But it's a way to tell, right? And it's a useful tool to tell what's happening in that lunge.
I know, that was.
It's hard. It's also a bit of skill in itself. So we get to see there's this thing that usually on the heel fixes the toe problem. The toe is going in. It's either two things: the toe went up, the toe is landing, or the back foot is forward, and now the foot is landing to line up with this back foot somewhere. So the back foot is in the wrong position. I'm lunging over there because my back foot is aligned down with Eric and not here. Right. You'll see people who set up too far. Yeah.
Do you have a rule about how high your student's foot can come before you start correcting it? Or do you just not care as much
I just
as
don't
fast?
care very much. I want to see the knee be bent through the lunge, and I want to see it skim the floor mostly flat. But I have less, as long as they can do it, and they can do it probably outdoors, I don't have a problem. Right? Because it really what matters is how it comes down on the ground and not how it is in the air. So if I can do this, I'll let it land flat and still get it even when it's slippery, that's great. If I let it go a little bit, I always land feel like this, and it's not flat, and I slide out in the grass like this, which I have totally done to myself, that's bad, right?
There's a subtle difference between how each of you land, and it's pretty consistent. And that's the
Yeah.
observation. Yours is a little bit more flat on the landing, and yours is the classic heel land.
Heel land.
But one of the things that I've noticed is that people who fence on ground tend to gravitate towards the flatter landing compared to people who fence in the style who tend to land on the surface that they can depend on.
Yes.
And it's neither one that I think in this application is right or wrong. It depends upon, you may need to,
Adjust.
more like David's, if you're
And-
fencing out there on that hill,
Oh yeah. So when I fence in the SK, I wear a very slick leather shoe, and my lunge changes dramatically. And you'll notice that when I'm out there and I'm not in these super sticky sports shoes on nice floors, my lunge goes from like this to a little bit shorter and a little flatter. And you can actually see this in pictures of me doing this thing. I'm not actually doing the same lunge.
I don't think I change a lot.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, I don't change.
It's also because I train with a lot of college kids right now, so I'm training in a club with sport fencers in very nice gym floors all the time. Yeah.
So I'm being semi-trolly. What's their trolley and two-thirds not? What are your thoughts, because I know some people have seen it, of Carshall's Renaissance lunge?
Oh God. So I dislike the Renaissance lunge.
We're on video. Is this video gonna be posted?
Maybe we'll talk about this one. I might edit it out. We'll see.
Okay, so I'm not a big fan of the Renaissance lunge. I have met, a couple things. One, I don't like the knee over toe, the way they're landing toe first. They made a comment, they have a bunch of dancers who dance, special dancers and walk, and I'll totally do this position, no problem. You can do this if you're a professional dancer. I'm sorry, your legs are way strong to take virtually any force in either direction. And usually they're landing straight down. So if dancers go in this position, it's almost always going up and then going down. And there's not a velocity forward. The forward vector is less present. My issue with this knee thing is that all my force is going this way, so my knee takes almost all the force to stop. All my stop energy comes from this joint, and I'm not using my foot at all. I can't push back from my foot. It's all going to go right here, and it's going to hurt. And so that's my biggest issue with the Renaissance lunge they do. Other issues include the fact that because they do it this way, and it's short, they tend to lean a lot. And I actually have a fence who trained with Tattershaw, who was never very trained, or well trained, so it's not a whole lot of time, who actually, at one point when she stopped fencing for a while, would fall over, trying to do this every time. We had to fix it, she fixed it, but she went back to fencing after 4 years out, where I was, and she lunge looks like this now. It was like this. And every time. If she hit something, it was great, and she wouldn't fall over, but as soon as I moved out of the way, because there isn't really any stability. You don't have.
Because of the initial stance is actually wider.
Yeah, and this, if you're going to go just this far, it doesn't really matter. You can land toe, you can land heel. If you're going to make any attempt to go long at all, this thing, once you're here, any length, even relatively short, there isn't a stable position here that is neutral except in the forward plane. And so if you're a little bit off, if I'm a little bit off here, I'm going that way, my foot isn't stable, and I'm going to fall. And that has happened to some people. So I'm really not a big fan.
Do you think it has something to do with the counteroffensive nature of right here? Because you don't want to hang there so long.
So
they're sticking counters all the time.
So I think that a lot of this particular action comes from trying to interpret Caballero's plate as drawn, and trying to, well, there's instances, even with Caballero's particularly rapier pictures, there's a bunch of variation on how far the knee is, where the back foot is, and so some are much closer to what, how much of a lean there is, and so on. So there's it's trying to take one picture and say this is how it always should be, and reverse engineer a mechanical system to do it.
Yeah, and that said, I have yet to see any actual, real textual evidence that would actually document a lunge this way.
It's also weird to think of from like a dance dynamic background, because even when you're doing like salts,
Yeah,
my ball is landing, it's never to the point of it deadening.
yeah,
Because you have to
Right.
drive that arch into the ground, or else you have nothing to absorb. And if you're doing machetes, you're still gonna land down, and if anything, you pass through
yeah.
to the next one. So it's like a loading.
Yeah,
So it's
and this is why I've always had a lot of trouble with this particular argument. And saying dancers can do it okay and not hurt each other. They can do it, but it's usually part of something else or done with other reasons.
Because like with a song, you're here, and your full extension's up here. By the time you're down, you're already on that ball. Because you can't, you're not, like, there might be some weird choreography where you're landing on a full point, but like that.
That's some like
Well-
that's some balance sheen crazy.
Yeah, it's like weird
That's
balance
for
and
guys.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's for guys when they're 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're also probably in a pod and falling over.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Yeah. So you have someone literally supporting you.
Is that Renaissance lunge possibly more useful when you are doing the reversal?
I think it's less useful because you're less stable. When you're in a classical lunge position, you're pretty stable in a lot of lines. You can resist in many places. With this lunge position, with the twist with the toe and the heel, the double toes, I'm not particularly stable in any line but forward. If I try to push this way or this way, I'm not really good. If I'm here, I can pretty reasonably go to about 45 degrees of stable, no matter which direction I have to be in, and still be pretty good. But once I lift this toe up, once I land it, once I lift that toe up, I'm way over here. I'm less stable. I don't have a lot of ways to. I can't lock my force back onto my back leg as easily. I have to rock back to do that. So you don't quite really stable in this line.
What I was talking about is that movement
Yeah.
is all footwork, not handwork. So that, you're if the next move.
And Destreza does a bunch of stuff like this. So if we do Destreza, there's a ton of this stuff, or this stuff, right? And if that's basically a lunge offline, but it's not delivering a forward motion, right? I'm delivering a motion over there with this step, over here with this step. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm not going to sit here, but I'm not doing this and then trying to recover, which is what people are doing, right? I also think that overloading this knee means recovery is really slow unless you're super strong. But if you're really strong, you can lunge out, you can cover out really easily. You can pretty easily. But if I'm me, I don't have the strength to really get out of this fast. This is a lot of tension, and I got all this weight here. I got to push really hard to get back, and it's hard. I have some fencers who can do this and who can do stuff like lunge and fletch, but I can't do that, and that's because he's 21 and weighs 140 pounds and mostly muscle. He can totally do this. I can't. So, some other question?
I was going to say that is, for people who are taller or heavier, the further forward you go, the more problematic it is. The longer it takes to recover, and the more damage you're likely to do to your knee.
Yeah. So,
One other thing, this one's natural. So similar thing, I've seen more some brain farting clubs, European side sword, and they will do a lunge into a subnative's front foot because of, so they're like front foot points out, because of, again, pictures they've seen of like the Rossi or
yeah.
whomever do this, right? What's your thoughts on
So,
doing this?
okay. I think that if you're going to do the dynamic lunge that we're doing, and you habitually turn your foot, and you're lunging forward like this, you're going to break your knee. Like, I have guys who have broken their knee, who have popped knees doing bad lunges like this. Right? That is if you're lunging at the explosive speed. If I'm doing something short, or just as I asked, well, it's not that I'm not pushing that hard, I can totally step out of this. Right? I can do this. I mean, there's videos of me doing stuff like that, where I'm like, my leg is completely twisted. And I'm doing this at pretty reasonable speed, right? It's doable, right? You can totally do this. I just don't think the lunge if we're gonna do lunges like this, and you're gonna rock it forward and as fast as you can go, and you have to stop it with your knee not straight, you're gonna pop the knee out eventually. The same thing is true, like you can, if you have really strong leg, knee stabilizers, yeah, you can not pop it out. But if you don't, bad things are gonna happen eventually. Yeah.
By voice of experience, injuries accumulate over time. You're good right now.
Yeah.
When you get older, they come up. That's all.
And I mean, if you see the Bolognese, the glass, the sides of stuff where you're doing step hit, you're probably not moving like, boom! You're going to move at about this speed, and that's okay.
What also tells you to walk and like, if you
Yeah.
guys walk, it doesn't tell you to explode in that. Aha!
It's like this. Like, okay, I can do this. That's okay.
Sorry, maybe this is like too practical, but let's say you have a student who always lunges a little bit pigeon-toed. I usually say, lunge straight, point your toe at me, right? If that doesn't work, you would say first look at the heel and see if the heel is lifting up.
I also almost say land with the heel. The first thing I'll say is land with the heel. And yes, it's not what I want because I want a flat lunge.
Okay.
But the heel first will almost always drop the toe in the right place. It will tell you where their shoulder alignment is.
Okay.
If their hip alignment is bad, then they'll lunge and their toe will go this way. And you can see it and go, oh, look, your back foot's in the wrong place. Right? But if they're right and they're doing this thing, right, I can say land, heel, toe, and almost always it'll be right in the line I want.
So if I say do that and then they still land wrong, then kind of move up the body.
Yes, look at the hips, look at the shoulders, look at all the feet, and look at where their legs are, because usually it's an issue with the knees and the hips and the shoulders that cause the weird twisting. Or trying to line too short. If they're scared of their lunge, this is really common, because they're trying to stop too early.
Do you have strong opinions on like backhand action, or do you just vary it on weapon? Because like you see Kemper like this, you see like the old scorpion arm that's fallen way out of favor in modern sport fencing.
Yeah, I have not a lot of opinion here. I will do a number of things. So I fence epee like this, with the hand here and do the elephant arm. I will fence rapier a lot like this in the Bone de Monsters guards and do similar things. This thing here. I'll do this sometimes, right? I'll do classical fencing like this. I don't really have an opinion. I think, and I'll do saber like this. I think that to say that the back arm is necessary to prevent the torso from moving, right, is wrong if you assume that saber we don't move the back hand at all.
Yeah.
Yet it's necessary. No, it's not necessary. For newbie, for beginners, something to anchor the back shoulder is valuable in the beginning, because many people when they first learn the lunge, and I don't teach them anything, will do something that looks like this. And how many people have seen this lunge versus sport fencing?
Yeah.
Ah! And the arm, his shoulders way up, his shoulders way down. Like, I'm hitting something.
Or they like stay like perfectly square.
You're like way
lose
square.
like a foot of reach.
All this stuff, right? So using the back arm, preferably either this way, where the hand is pulled up so you can't overreach. If I do this like the karate chop, it's really easy to go too far. But if I do this palm up, like have a first plate, it stops your shoulder from going too far back. You go a little bit too far, but you'll feel a stretch at about here. And it'll help you anchor the arm to the right position.
Would you say it helps you to keep your body profile?
Keeps the profile, keeps the shoulders level. These are all good things, right? But as you get better, I don't really see a need to keep doing this forever.
I think that for people who are learning, that if you can go up and down, or from low to high, that's better than going sideways. Like, too many people end up twisting. Like,
Yeah.
so whether you go straight out like our class Italian or further down, doesn't matter so much. You can recover easily from both using the arm effectively, but this is easier than
This, yeah. The only time I do this I like is this will help stop it, so you don't, but if you're doing this, every time, this always happens.
So I do have another argument sort of related to this though, is that oftentimes in rapier texts, when you see a thrust in second, the arm and the shoulder are cut forward. So you'll see this. Part of this is if you're left-handed and I'm hitting your outside line, this is actually really useful to have. This extra profile doesn't really help me nearly as much. If I'm in fourth, this profile is kind of what I need, right? If something goes wrong, this is keeping me safe. On this side, this is the part that is actually like useful, and so you see that in a lot of texts, and you even see in Pasha when he does that lunge in second, he actually turns. He turns his back foot because it assists with this. I'm straight, and if you're using a dagger, this is great. This is a wonderful, wonderful parry. And so that's kind of one of the things that how I tend to think about what I'm doing with the arm. Sometimes depends on the line I'm in.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that if you're teaching someone in the beginning, you need to teach this kind of a good, stable posture. And as you get better, there's tons of variation in this position. I mean, if I'm doing Fabulous and I'm lunging, right, I might be lunging like this. Right? I also might be lunging like this. And I could be lunging like this. Right? I could be passing like this. Right? All these things are all within the system, they're all viable. But if I can't lunge stably in any one of them, it's in a bad place. I'm also perfectly okay with people who like to lunge like this and pull the arm up in the lunge. That gets the shoulder back too. So I see a lot of later texts where the people at Gigante will do this. So, okay, cool. And that's actually we're pretty much at the end. So I've covered all the things I really want to talk about.
I have another question.
Yes.
How do you help a student understand how far they should step in their lunge?
So I think this is how far is the step in lunge is for me is set by the length of the stretch you can make. And there's an upper limit to how far I can lunge based on how far I can make the stretch happen. Right? This is going to be the absolute maximum I can ever lunge. And this will change as fencers get more flexible. And so you'll see fencers who have been with you from the beginning, they can lunge this far. Because that's how far they could lunge at the beginning. And that was it. And now they actually can lunge this far, but they don't ever do it because they don't believe. There was a whole lot of it gets longer. So the maximum length of a lunge is determined by that position. And they're going to recover out of it. So this is given for me, as Titania's point, a typical student who happens to be about 24 and still has all their joints, right? So to me, it's the length of that position, and they should be able to recover out of it. If they're not, we're doing more squats until they can, right? We're going to solve that problem the other way. For people who have other issues, it's about how far they can successfully recover from. And if people have any issues, the lunge should not be powered with the back leg as a force generator, and should be just a step.
So how much you diagnose issues that somebody is having? Like you think this person probably needs to lunge a little bit further. This person needs to maybe not lunge so much. Like what do you look for?
I'm looking for these short people, I'm usually looking for an overlead. If they lunge and land and they keep going, they can lunge farther almost every time because that means their foot could have been here, right? And you'll see this with people who, as they get more comfortable, they'll do this lunge and they'll lean into it. They want that extra 2 inches of reach, and you're like, yeah, you can totally go out just that far further. Why go short? You have the distance, right? And that's usually the thing I'm looking for. I'm seeing that knee change, and that's sinking as they're lunging. It's telling me they're flexible enough to go farther, and choosing not to.
And stepping further there puts them in a more stable position.
Yeah, and they're better off.
Right.
For people who are lunging too far, it's almost always this. Anything with the knee is not straight. It's like straight over here. They're trying to go too far and they're stopping, and now they can't really get into it, right? For recovery stuff, if it's a strength issue, you can watch how fast they can recover. And if they're like, you see this weight shift where they go lean back and push back, they can't recover easily. And it's pretty easy to say that you need to lunge shoulders, so you have more power getting back.
So, one thing about when I teach lunge, I tell students to engage your core as well, because some like have the tendency to like push your butt out, you know?
Yeah, so I don't like this, so as not English I like to use. I think about reaching, because the core for me is quite loose as I lunge. I don't tense this. And if they're doing this, their butt goes out, it's because they're leaning down. You want them to stand up. So you'll see a lot of sport coaches stand up. This is the Russian coach with a vertical lunge. Stand up. And I had a fencer once who trained in a club, and his coach would hit him on the leg every time he leaned over. Like every time, and you could tell he was scarred. He would lunge like this. Go really straight. Good Russian lunge. Straight up. And his body would go backwards. So he didn't lean too far forward. Like you can just see, boom. And it's important. And he was doing that, but you want to get this alignment, and it's really about the shoulder alignment to me and the hip alignment that keeps you from doing this. So you're on that unrolling motion, right? Because yeah, this thing, what totally happens to people when the butt sticks out sideways, and they try to do this, is usually because their shoulders aren't lined up, the hips and shoulders aren't lined up right. And you want to get that.
Are there any things to remember in the recovery lunge?
So this depends a lot on the weapon you're doing. The less for rapier and saber, more for sport fencing. I want to see the lunge not require the recovery really push off. I like to push from the toe mostly off and not the heel off. That's a personal preference. And it's because I tend to be a little bit farther than the heel with my knee. But really, it needs to come in one motion up and not require a sink and push, which you'll see people do, or a body lean and push, which people will do. It should be able to come in and just go right out. That's what I'm really looking for as it's doing.
Let's start by bending on the knee.
Yeah, the bending, the back knee has to start. Yeah, the back knee has to start first.
I have one more question that may make us go over. But the last thing I wanted to ask, what about the degree of lean at the end of the lunge? So like how much do you lean forward here versus upright?
So for sport fencing, I like a little bit, and it's probably like 15, 20 degrees. My rule for this is you have to be able to easily move out of it.
Say that again?
You have to be able to get out of it easily. Like, I don't care if you have core strength to go all the way out here and get back flat. I'm fine, you got that. You can do that, right? But if you can't and you fall over, that is bad and you shouldn't do it, right? And I have a strong lesson sense to keep it less than your maximum, right? So maybe 50% of your maximum amount of reach if you're gonna do that leaning. It's when you fence, and you've seen me do this sometimes, where I can totally get there if I just did a little farther. And this becomes a never-ending cycle. As the reward system tells me, I should go a little bit farther with that lean, a little bit farther. And then by the end of the action, ears and back, I'm like this. I totally got the hit.
Yeah.
But I am way out of position right now. This is the bad. I got it, but it's not even. So I want to train to be about here, which is about halfway between my max and my minimum. And then I can, if I'm fencing in a tournament and I need to hit something, I can get there and get out. And I know I can, but I haven't gone too far past the point at which I'm in horrible stuff and we get hit in the head.
So what do you teach to somebody new? How do you teach them?
So I say a little bit of lead.
Okay.
And what I'm usually doing is when I'm doing this drill with this arm, I want about that, I'm in about this much or less. And you'll feel it, because his hips will lock as his arm gets pulled. And the legs have to go once he's falling over. And there'll be a point at which his body says, if I keep leaning further, I'm falling over. Right? So don't lunge, just lean up. So that he's reaching a point where he's not stable. But if I do this, he's still stable, and his body will reach this point where he's leaned a little bit forward, and it's about as much as he can go, and his legs will fall. He's in reasonable shape. That's about what I like to see. I like a little bit. I don't like this upright. I don't like really far forward. But the way I get that is about what's stable when I pull that on. Can he still resist my force and stay reasonably stable as he's doing it? That gets you about what I like to see. Because you can be farther forward and still recover, even though you're not as stable. Cool. Any other questions?
It's a little complicated.
It's a really, I will try to make notes and put them online.
No, I mean my question.
Oh, cool, yeah.
I have, ladies in the club who are buxom and, two gentlemen who are very shoulder and chest heavy. And in general, we've had a problem with their center of gravity going too far forward. And the way I've solved it, is to basically hand them a Fowler's lunge, where the Devon Gorman,
Yeah,
your ass,
yeah.
sorry, comes out and then now it's more centered. Do you
Yeah,
have something other than that?
Other than that, so if you've got, so for people who, this is the top-heavy question, right? So some of it can be fixed with trying to pull the shoulder back and keep the body as profiled as possible. If they have hip flexibility to do this and to stay completely flat, you can kind of get this where they're not. The issue is the center of gravity is going this way or going that way, right? And the forward is less of an issue. Is that reasonable to say?
Forward is the problem.
So this is the issue?
Yeah, they're pushing their chest out over their knee.
Over there, it's dropping out, right?
Yeah.
So this is the case where they're hitting people in the leg and not lean a little bit back. You can tell them to hold their body back as they lunge and not let it go, right? So this is, you engage your core, keep your shoulders back. And you want to monitor so you don't do this, right? And they'll do this for a while, right? But eventually they'll start getting to the point where to stop doing that now and just be there. And their body will be more upright. Because what you're really trying to do is not lean as far, because they tend to just causes them to drop. You want to keep their shoulders over their hips more, which means they're going to stay up. And the natural inclination for us when we do this motion is to make any amount of lean. For right now, any lean is causing them to fall over. Right? So you want to keep them as straight as possible. Though fabulous, honestly, is probably almost a better solution. Like just off of that may just be a better solution. But if you have to do it quota, fabulous in quota sucks. This lunge is really bad in quota. So you have some trouble, right? You may want to just do this. You also can try this thing. Have them pull their shoulder up and back and see if it helps fix their shoulders behind them. This is where these kind of classical arm things help, because they keep the shoulders from leaning in like this and keeping them up, right? And they help as well.
Actually,
All right.
we're about 20 minutes over, so.
Oh, okay, we're way over.
Just embrace it.
Yeah, sorry. All right.
So let's do more questions after.
Yes.
Good conversation, but before everybody disperses, we're going to gear up. Even if you're not going to do Sabre, maybe go ahead and put on your stuff, because we're going to do a group picture before Sabre. Also, could I have a show of hands to see who is coming out to group dinner tomorrow? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Wait, are you coming to dinner tomorrow? Or are you
13,
leaving?
14,
Yes.
15.
Okay. You are
And then
now.
16, 17. Great. It's not going to be at Bullfrogs anymore because their food isn't very good. Helena will announce our destination.
I have to look on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay, one more thing.
Yeah.
Grab them, I don't care what
Is it off?
weapon you bring with you,
Oh, thank you.
whatever you want.